Welcome to the mess. I'm going to repot some plans. I'm also going to talk about some books I've been reading recently. I want to update you on my reading so far. I'm going to talk about favorite books, most anticipated books, and some disappointing books, some new favorites, some, just check up on you with my reading. And at the same time, I'm going to repot some of my plans. So yeah. Okay, some of these babies are really long. That one in particular really needs repotting. It's too long, right? I'm gonna give it a haircut, propagate it, and then it's gonna find a new home. Maybe the first book I could talk about would be the best book I've read so far in 2022. I read 37 books so far. I didn't give a lot of 5 stars, but I think the best book I can think of would be Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstances. I've talked about it in the previous video and I just love that book so much. Oh my god, look how... That one really needed some repotting. It is magical realism and it's basically the story of this child that has been raised by wolves. He was a kind of wild child, so I really like this trope of being raised by wolves and is kind of a savage kid. He's so mysterious. This character is also kind of magical. There's some weird stuff happening around him. It's elemental magic, but it's so speculative and I really like that. If you love wolves, if you love nature, if you love rain, and if you like storms and just amazing friendships and amazing relationships between characters, I think you would really like this book. It feels like home, weirdly. Everyone finds home in books in different ways, but for me this sounds like home. It smells like damp forest. Another read that I really liked, and I read it so fast, was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. So this is just a classic whodunit type of book, and it's a bunch of people that have been invited to an island and then they get stuck on this island and people start dying one by one. Very fast paced. It's not long at all, but it's enough to keep you engaged, and I think it's brilliant. It's Agatha Christie, so obviously she's the queen of mysteries, and I really like mysteries. That one is repotted in your new home. But to continue, to link this book, one of my most disappointing books of the year has been The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I am very, very disappointed. It's also the type of book where it's like whodunit and then people are stuck somewhere on an island or in a house and people disappear, people die. I just didn't care about these characters. They were all despicable. I hated all of them. Usually it's fine if I hate the characters, but this one I just couldn't root for any of them. I didn't care who would die and I really wanted all to die. The ending is a bit ridiculous in my opinion and I could see it coming. The last scene is a bit dramatic. I feel it was a bit unnecessarily like Hollywood thing. Is it a movie? I don't know if they made a movie out of it. It's so popular, like people were crazy about it. Honestly, I didn't care for any of the characters. I was so bored. It was too long, way too long. God, that was so boring. It was okay at times, and the audiobook for that is actually really nice. There's no representation in this. All these people are white. People might hate me for this, but I didn't enjoy that as much as I expected. I was hoping to love it so much. But Lucy Foley, that was not impressing. I still bought the Paris apartment that just came out this year, just to give her a second chance, but I don't have a lot of hopes. Next, I'm gonna repot this baby. The best sequel I've read so far. I didn't read a lot of sequels, I have to say. The best sequel I've read is from Seanan McGuire, and is the second volume of the Way of Children book. Again, it's short, so it's so easy to get into the story, and her writing is so magical and mystical and like fairy tale like. In this story it feels like like a fairy tale, and she's kind of speaking to us. She's narrating the story to us like if it was, I don't know, you know, The Little Mermaid or Snow White. So these stories is basically about children that went to fantastic worlds through portals that were tied up to them. Fantastic, but also dangerous at times and very gruesome and scary and a bit dark. They came back and they are now very upset about it, because obviously who would want to live here when you could live in Narnia? No one wants that. It's like fairy tales for adults. And the second volume follows some characters that we've seen in the first volume, and we basically see where they went. It's quite dark, you know, like the original fairy tales that Disney took. The original fairy tales are not nice and pretty at all. They're actually really scary. I gave it 5 stars. It was actually really good. The writing was amazing and the characters, I really like the relationships, and these 2 twins, I love it. What is my new favorite author of 2022? It has to be Alice Oseman, because the Heartstopper collection is just magnificent. I really discovered her as an author. I think she's one of the best at representing LGBTQ characters. They're so human, so real, and she does that so well. They also talk about other aspects of LGBTQ that we don't see a lot. For example, sexuality. It's about self-discovery, and I think it is brilliant. I really want to read more from her. It's young adult, so I don't usually read a lot of young adults, to be honest. It's not really my jam for some reason. I don't mind reading young adult when it's Alice Oseman. My most surprising read, that's something I've never read before. It's a memoir. I love Patti Smith a lot. She's one of my favorite artists. Her music is just incredible. In the 70s, I mean, I almost only listened to the 70s music, rock, and I was just very curious to know more about her life. But more importantly, this is about her relationship with Robert Mapplethorpe. Sorry. This is her relationship with her best friend, her lover, her relationship with art, about her dedication to art, and how amazing she is. So I had no idea about her upbringing. She's had a difficult life, that's for sure. And she was poor for so long before becoming famous. I had no idea. So this is basically a love letter to art, to music, to friendship, to also self-discovery and finding yourself, finding your art, finding what you love, finding something that pushes you to wake up every day. This is amazing. Alright, I think everyone should read this memoir. She's an incredible writer. She's an incredible poet. I understand why her music is so amazing now. It's also a dramatic life, a dramatic relationship. It feels so human, and yet it feels like a movie. When I also listened to the book, she's narrating it herself. It was incredible. That book deserves more love. And please, it's a must read if you like memoirs. Even if you don't know Patti Smith that much, it's still amazing and you get to know her. So it's so emotional. I cried so many times. At times because of sadness, sometimes because of love, because how beautiful it is. It's weird to say that. I'm so proud of her. And she's 70 now, and I think she is amazing. And you should really read this book. It's a love letter to life. My most anticipated release of 2022 that I still haven't read yet would be Note on an Execution. Is it here somewhere? Yes. This book, I'm very excited to read this. Basically, it's telling the story of Ansel Parker that is scheduled to die, to be executed. in 12 hours. And this is a story of the woman that he killed, the woman in his life, the woman that he's leaving behind because of his actions. I love how it's not necessarily about the murderer. This is about the victims and the people around murderer, and how people react to this, how they deal with having a murderer in your family, or how the family has been impacted by this murder. And it's not only about him, and I think this is very original. I'm very excited to read this. Ansel Parker is scheduled to die in 12 hours, but this is not his story. This is the story of the woman left behind. He knows what he's done, and now awaits the same fate he forced onto those girls. I think it's going to be incredibly impactful, probably very feminist. A most anticipated release that still haven't come out yet. There are many that I want to read. Some of the most anticipated ones are Stone Blind by Natalie Hayne. It's basically the story of Medusa, you know, the lady with the snakes for her hair. And it's a retelling of Medusa, putting her on the forefront, her story. She's a troubled woman. So I'm very excited to know more about her, but mostly getting a new take on her life as a woman. I think it's going to be really good. I'm really excited for that. Another one I cannot wait. Babel by R.F. Kuang. Now, she's known for her series, the Poppy War series. It's a fantasy, high fantasy, basically military school, Chinese mythology inspired. It's kind of dark and very adult, I think. Trigger warnings and stuff. But Babel, I don't know much about it, but I know what Babel is. Babel is this tower, right, where all of the languages come from. The legend says that Babel was first a place where all humanity lived together. They could all communicate together without barriers. Everyone could understand each other. It was amazing. And Babel is also, they wanted to build this tower to get to the sky, to get to God, right? And God didn't like that. He basically cursed us. He made us not being able to understand each other. He made languages, different languages. So now people cannot understand each other. They have difficulties communicating, and this is our fate, human fate. So this is Babel. I have no idea where she's gonna take us. I think it is a chunker, it's like 500 pages or something, so I'm not looking forward to this, but at the same time I think it's going to be amazing. A book that made me cry this year is, without a doubt, A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. I think it's a Norwegian translated fiction, and let me tell you that I cried, I think, in the first 20 pages. It was so intense. I laughed so much, I cried so much. This is a story of a very grumpy man, and in his neighborhood is a new family that moved in next door. And this is a story of him not only falling back in love with living. It's never too late to change. It's never too late to fall in love with the people, to open up. And this is basically about this. This old grumpy man with a lot of prejudice. Another generation, you know, he's like 70 or 80. He's old. And I love how we follow an old character. We don't get to see these old characters very often. That's what I love the most about this book, is how unusual it is to follow a character that is old. So this is literary fiction, there's nothing fantastic about it. It's all about human relationships, life, and this character has so much depth, obviously, because he's 70, so it's got all of it life behind him, and it's so sad. If you read this, please read it. It's a masterpiece. It's really not that long, and it is heartwarming and heartbreaking. Second, Snake Plant. A book that made me happy. A book that made me happy. Oh, I know. It's a series. It's the Ladies Hardcastle mystery series. It's so funny. It's about these two ladies. I think it's Victorian era or Georgian era. This Lady Hardcastle with her maid. And they basically move in the countryside. They come from the city. They find a corpse in the woods. on a walk, and this is about them kind of getting their nose where it doesn't belong. They kind of love the thrill, and they decide to solve this murder, even if the police said they were on it. And it's just so witty humor. It's so funny, and the characters are so cute. I don't know, it's so British humor, you know, so witty, so sarcastic, but in a historical setting, which is amazing. I love it. If you like classic murder mysteries, this is for you. If you're looking for another series to binge, yes, Lady Hardcastle and her maid onto another adventure to find the murderer. But first, tea time. I love that, they're so British. My favorite book to movie adaptation this year is 100% Heartstopper. It's honestly one of the best book to movie that I've ever seen. I almost prefer the TV show to the books. That's how good it is, okay? I cried so much. It's just so heartwarming and so cute. I don't want to be dramatic, but I would kill for Nick and Charlie. I would die for them. And the actors are phenomenal. They're so young and already so good. I cannot wait to see where they're gonna go later in life. I also want to tell you what are my favorite non-fiction that I've read so far. I'm not going to talk about all of them because that's not the point of the video. The favorite non-fiction book of this year has to be the transgender issue. This should be mandatory read in school. I'm not even kidding. Like, this is eye-opening, life-changing, so human, and yet it's a non-fiction. So a lot of non-fictions feel very dry, and it's also a lot about statistics. We have the statistics that matter. The statistics are there to kind of make you realize how bad the problem is about transphobia in this world, but they don't overwhelm the argument. The argument is not only about the statistics. Because it's not what this is about, and there's limitations to showing statistics. It's shocking how this world, when I mean this world, is the Western world, is not made for trans people, and they are rejecting them, literally rejecting them, making their lives difficult, not being able to get the right healthcare, not being able to live their lives as they want to, you know, to be happy, and they're not, most of them. There's a huge mental problem, harassment, assault, murder. It's so important. This read is amazing. It made me want to cry at some point, but it is also showing how deep and complex and just amazing trans people are, and I love that book so much. This is the book that made me learn the most this year. Because I've read a lot about other LGBTQ books or other feminist books as well. This book, I've really learned a lot about the transgender issue. Read this, it's not really long. This book is so accessible. It makes learning about transgender people and the transgender issue and transphobia and how trans people live in a very accessible way. I think the writing is very compelling, very human, and yet it tells you the facts. This was a repotting of some of my books, some of my plans, and just chit-chatting about books. I went on a tangent. I just want to chat about the books I've read and the books I didn't like. And I think all of the books I recommended, you should read them. I think they're all exceptional, and they all made my life better in a way. Like my plans. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and then may the plants live, grow around you, and read books. I will see you in the other video. This was a little bit chaotic, but this is my life. Okay? Reading books and plants. What more do you want?